Learning with Miss Sadie. Like, share, and subscribe. Little Toot. At the foot of an old wharf lived the cutest little tugboat you ever saw. His name was Little Toot. Blow hard as he could, the only sound that came out of his whistle was a small, merry toot, toot, toot. Little Toot could not make as much noise as the other tugboats, so he liked to show off by blowing fat balls of smoke out of his candy stick smokestack. Little Toot felt important then, and the flag at his masthead would dance like the tail of a happy puppy dog. The river where Little Toot lived was full of ships. Some ships brought people from distant lands. Others brought bright-colored carpets from India, fine silk clothes from China, and fresh bunches of bananas from South America. So there was always exciting work for tugboats to do. They pushed the big ships into the docks to be loaded and unloaded. They towed the ships down the river to the wide, deep sea. Little Toot was right in the middle of the excitement. He watched his father work hard. Big Toot was the biggest and fastest tugboat on the river. Grandfather Toot liked to tell his grandson about his mighty deeds. "I'm an old sea dog who breathes smoke," he would say. "Someday you'll be just like me, Little Toot." Little Toot listened to his grandfather's stories, but he did not want to work and do mighty deeds. He saw no sense in pulling ships 50 times bigger than himself way down to the ocean, and he was scared of the wild sea that lay in waiting beyond the river's edge. Little Toot had no desire to be tossed around. He liked the calm water of the river instead, where he could always find plenty of fun. Or he made fancy figure eights. He liked to make bigger and bigger ones. One day, carried away by the joy of it, he made one so big that it took up the whole river. Toot, toot, toot! A big tug blew his loud whistle at Little Toot. "Out of my way," called J.G. McGillicuddy, puffing his big cloud of smoke. "I have work to do. I'm going to pick up a string of coal barges from Hoboken." Toot, toot, toot! The big tugboat chased Little Toot away. All the other tugboats made fun of Little Toot, calling him a silly tugboat who only knew how to play. Poor Little Toot, he felt ashamed and angry as he sailed away, puffing a trail of smoke balls. The other boats just laughed at him. Little Toot fled to his favorite place by the wharf. He hid watching the river, and there he just sat and sulked. Soon he saw a great ocean liner, and pulling it were 4 tugboats. His own father, Big Toot, was right up in front. The sight of the brave, bustling tugboats made Little Toot think. Suddenly, a great new idea came to him. I don't want to be a silly tugboat anymore, he thought. I want to be a real tugboat. The best tugboat on the river. Then I'll make my father proud of me. Eagerly, little Toot sailed to one ship after another. Toot, 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 he called. Throw me your line, I'll pull you down the river. But the big ships knew little Toot too well. One ship blew steam at the little tugboat. Another blew its loud whistle and blasted him right out of the water. Go away, little Toot, the big ship said. We need a real tugboat to help us. Little Toot felt very lonely. He wasn't wanted anywhere or by anyone. With his spirits drooping, he let the tide carry him where it willed. He did not see the sky growing dark. He did not feel the wind blowing harder and harder. The wind was whipping up into a real storm. Just then, little Toot heard a strange new sound. It was the ocean. He had never seen the great ocean before. Noisy waves crashed and dashed and pounded against the rocks. But that wasn't all. Against the black sky climbed a brilliant, flaming rocket. It was a ship's danger flare. Little Toot looked hard and saw a big ship jammed between two huge rocks. It was an ocean liner his father had towed many times down the river. The ship was in trouble. It was truly a terrible thing to see. Little Toot was so excited he puffed more and more smoke balls. They gave him a wonderful idea. Those smoke balls could probably be seen all the way up the river, where his father and grandfather were. So he puffed a signal. Way up the river, the tugboats saw little Toot's signal. They had no idea who was sending the signal, but they knew it meant, "Come quickly." Down the river streamed the great fleet, big boats, little boats, fat boats, and skinny boats. Big Toot led them all. The ocean waves grew bigger and bigger. It was hard for little Toot to stay afloat. Waves spun him around till he was dizzy. They tossed him higher and higher. It looked as though he'd never get down. At the top of one wave, little Toot saw the other boats. They could not reach him. Even Grandfather Toot was bellowing. He had never seen such a storm. Little Toot was scared green. Something had to be done. But what could he do now? He only knew how to play and blow those silly smoke balls out of his candy stick smokestack. The fleet of boats fought against the waves, but the waves pushed them back. They were almost ready to give up, and then they heard a merry, familiar call. Toot, toot, toot. It was little Toot. He was not fighting the waves. He was riding on top of them, bouncing from one wave to the next, like a rubber ball. The pounding hurt like anything, but little Toot kept right on going. Finally, little Toot reached the great ship. Then the crew threw him a line. Little Toot waited for a long moment. A huge wave swept under the ship, lifting it clear off the rocks. Then little Toot pulled all with his might, and the ocean liner came free. The people on board began to cheer. All the tugboats blew their whistles. They insisted that little Toot lead the great boat back into the harbor. Little Toot was a hero. Grandfather Toot blasted the news all over the river. My grandson's a sea dog just like me. After that, little Toot became quite a different fellow. He was a real tugboat now. He towed big loads up and down the river, just like the other boats. No one made fun of him anymore. He could even haul as big a load as his father could. Well, almost as big. And that made Big Toot and Little Toot very proud indeed.